Have you ever felt like life is a roller coaster and it's hard to stay calm and think clearly because there are so many ups and downs and so many crazy things like life is throwing at you? Well, we have too, and that's what we're talking about today on the Drama Free Living podcast, this idea of window of tolerance. And if you want some more information, go to the podcast beforehand where we talk about window of tolerance. But today we want to talk about how do you increase that so that you actually stay calm. And because life is a roller coaster, Lisa.
Life is a roller coaster, and we are completely in control of just how high and how low we go on that roller coaster.
Yeah, and what we talked about in the last podcast is when our window of tolerance is really narrow, that's when it feels like those high highs and those low lows.
We have limited capacity to handle stress.
Yeah, so let's talk about how do we increase that capacity. We've got two new ideas, and they're really sort of 4 keys to increasing the window of tolerance. So if you want some more information, go to the podcast before.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and kind of run through what window of tolerance is to give everyone an idea of what we're talking about.
Perfect.
So window of tolerance is how we deal with the pressures of life.
Yep.
It's how we deal with what life throws at us and how we deal with what's going on within us, within our families, and within our world. Mm-hmm. And when our window of tolerance is narrow, we have a limited capacity to deal with stress. And when it's wider, we're much more resilient. We're more resourceful.
Yeah.
So when we're in our window of tolerance, we're kind of in our go zone. We're in our, this just feels right. It's like, you can throw things at me and I've got it. We function effectively. It feels a little bit more effortless. And things go up and stuff happens and we're like, yeah, I got this. And we take on our challenges really easily. But when you think of it like a roller coaster and it's ramping up and up and up and up and up, and you start to feel this exhilaration and you start to feel this nervousness. Well, that's when in life, when you're going really high up on your roller coaster, that's when you're starting to get dysregulated. And that's when you're starting to feel anxious and you're starting to feel agitated and you're like, it's getting a little bit, but I still got it, but I'm ramping up. Well, if you keep going up on that roller coaster, then that's when you go into hyperarousal. That's when you go into I no longer have this. I am not in control anymore. I've got racing thoughts. I've got panic. I'm getting angry. I'm irritable. You say the wrong thing. You look at me the wrong way and I'm irritable and it's just too much. And I go into fight or flight. And that's going up on that window of tolerance. And then you can drop also in your window of tolerance, and you can drop and going way low. And when you're dropping below your window of tolerance and you start to be dysregulated, that's when you start to feel like this is a little too much. And I'm kind of starting to shut down. And I'm not being able to handle this, and I begin to detach. I'm still in control. Yeah. I'm still here. I'm still functioning, but I'm starting to feel like this is a little bit too much. Yeah. And if we don't stop then and do a couple things to kind of get under control, we will continue to go down, and we will continue to drop down, and we will go down off the edge, and we will shut down, and we can become depressed. That's when we become numb. Yeah. That's when we kind of begin to withdraw, and you're just not participating in life anymore. And you freeze. That's when you freeze. That's when you fawn. That's when people pleasing and just doing something to keep someone happy kind of comes into play, because you have just gone down into hypoarousal, and it's too much. And so life throws stuff at us all the time. And when our window of tolerance is really wide, we can handle these ups and downs, and we're still in control. And it's like, okay, this feels a little stressful, but I've still got it. Or okay, this is a little bit much, and I'm starting to check out, but I'm still here. Don't worry about me. But when we get too far into this anxiousness and the fight or flight, and we go too far down into this freeze or fawn, or into this numbing, that's when people, we just check out in life, and they're like, well, where did they go? You no longer have ideas. You don't have the energy. You don't want to get out of bed. You want to lay in bed all weekend. And it's just, but But if we can widen our window of tolerance, those
Mhm.
ups and downs, those highs and lows of life, they stay within the, okay, I'm okay and I got this and it's been a little bit tough, but I
Yeah.
still have it.
Well, Lisa, and you talked about in the beginning, like, how do we deal with like the stress and sort of, and the picture that I got is like this idea of like a card game,
Mhm.
right? And I can't do anything about the cards that are dealt me,
Right.
right? These are my cards, but it's not the cards; it's always the player, right?
Mhm.
I've realized I'm not the best poker player, but it typically is not the person with the best cards that wins. It is just the person who knows how to play the game well. And almost window of tolerance sort of is this idea of how do you play the game of life well?
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't do anything about the cards. These are the cards that I have, but how do I play these cards really, really well? But a lot of times what happens, we get mad at the cards.
Yeah.
We're angry at the cards, and there are some things in life we can't change the cards. It's like these are the cards that I have been dealt with, right? And if I'm mad about the cards, then I kind of go to that victimhood. I kind of go to that, learned helplessness, and there's nothing that I can do. And we've seen this especially with like certain, groups of people that we work with, is that there's so much pressure and so much stress, and they feel like, oh, there's nothing I can do, and they have that learned helplessness, and they're mad at these outside circumstances that they can't do anything about. At least, so literally, like we were in New Mexico this weekend or this past week, and yes, there are stressful things about that job but at the end of the day, I said, you chose to do this work.
Yeah.
Nobody put a gun to your head and said, right? But sometimes we just sort of get in this idea of like, well, it's nothing I get. And no, it's like we all have all the choices in the world. And so this is a way for you to really like, no matter what kind of cards you got dealt, you can play them well. And don't get mad at the cards.
Yeah, and so with window of tolerance, it grows with our experiences
Hmm.
as we grow with them. So my
Mhm.
window of tolerance is much larger now that
Yeah.
I'm in my 50s than when I was in my 20s and 30s. Just life has thrown things at me and I've learned from them and I've just kind of grown so I can handle more. Now
Good.
now you could
Good.
have two 30-year-olds,
Mm.
right? And one of them can just handle a lot and you
Mhm.
could throw a lot on them. And another one, maybe they just check out, they freak out, or
Yeah.
they detach. And a lot of that has to do with their window of tolerance. So it's not just an age thing,
Yeah.
but it's also a seasonal thing based on what's happening in our
Mhm.
culture or in our lives. We went through a time a few years back where we had several kind of tragic events that happened within about an 18-month period. And that was a seasonal thing. That's not something that had to do with age. That's not something that had to do with what I did. It just happened what life was throwing at us at that time. And so my window of tolerance was really narrow at that time. I knew that I just needed to take more time for Lisa to just take care of myself because otherwise I was going to bite your head off or
Mhm.
I was going to completely detach.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I don't want to blow up at you, so I will allow myself to go down into that complete numb, complete detach, because I just don't want to blow up. But you know what? That numbing, detaching is not necessarily a better solution than blowing up. It's
It's a
best
different
when
solution.
it's a different solution. It's best when we can just kind of keep it within. And a really good example of this is on your way to work and you're driving in your car. I gave this example in the last podcast. You're driving in your car, you're on the interstate, and then there's another car and they come into your lane and they almost sideswipe you. Well, you're going 65 miles an hour and it really freaks you out. You're like, oh my gosh. And to the point that you have got to, pull over, you get off the interstate and just get your heart rate back down because that was a really close call. I mean, that happened to us 2 days
Yeah.
ago. We
Yeah.
were driving on the interstate and we almost got smashed between two semis and you were very dysregulated
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point,
I
and we
was.
didn't have to pull over. And then so you have one person that happens and then they get into the office and they're still kind of freaked out and they're like, you are not going to believe what just happened to me. And then they're relaying and repeating that stress over again and they're drawing other people into the drama of it, and they're just really ramped up. And then something happens and a deal goes wrong and they freak out and they're just irritated and they're biting their heads off.
Mhm.
And then it just keeps going and little things,
Mhm.
they forgot their lunch or Or their lunch went flying
Yeah.
onto the floor and they spilled all over and they're like, now I don't have anything to eat. And they just can't win for trying because they are so dysregulated because of this sideswiping that almost happened in the morning. So that's someone that their window of tolerance is narrower because it's taking them a long time to recover from an incident. Whereas someone whose window of tolerance is broader,
Mm-hmm.
you almost get sideswiped from a semi. It's horrible. It could have been really bad. People could have died. Nobody did die. Your blood pressure's gone back down. Your heart rate's gone back down. You get into work, you just breathe a little bit and you're like, okay, I can move on with my day. A deal can go bad, but I'm not still affected by that near accident. And you can continue to move. And that's when you just really you're just in balance. And those challenges come and you can totally handle it.
Yeah.
And so depending on what season you're in, depends on what that window looks like. But what we want to talk about is how you can intentionally broaden this window of tolerance. Last week, we talked about 2 ways to increase your window of tolerance was increasing your happiness by increasing the chemical levels, dopamine, serotonin, those different levels in your body, and then also reducing shame. Those are 2 ways that you can intentionally increase this window so you can just handle it, so you can handle the stuff that life's throwing at you.
Yeah, Lisa, and I think the thing to make sure everybody understands is that these are skills. Right? These are 4 skills. So it just doesn't happen.
Life is going to throw stuff at you and we need to just be prepared.
And you can develop these 4 skills. That's the good news. You can develop them, you can grow them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think a big problem is that we get mad about the outside when this is really an inside job. Mm-hmm. It really has nothing to do with what's outside of you. It's this idea that all the water in the world will not sink your boat as long as it doesn't get in your boat.
Right.
And this is a way to maybe build a bigger boat. This is a way to not allow water to get in your boat.
To seal up your boat a little bit better.
Yeah. And you can have these great winds, these great storms and ride these big waves. But as long as that water is not getting in your boat, you're going to make it. You're going to be okay. And you can actually learn how to use these waves for your benefit, right? They can actually be an advantage, not a disadvantage. And I think a lot of times, like we look at these things as disadvantages, but it actually could be an advantage.
Yeah.
But if I see it as a disadvantage, that's how I'm going to perceive it. So we got 2 new skills that we want to talk about.
Yeah, mindfulness and building resilience.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so mindfulness is utilizing mindfulness is a way to increase your window of tolerance. And mindfulness are simple things like building awareness. There's a book, The Body Keeps a Score. There's all of this scientific data that says that when you go through things, your body holds it and it holds it in different places. And what can happen is when you're building awareness and when you're mindful and something happens, if you stop and you think, okay, where do I feel this in my body right now? And what does it feel like? Typically for me, it feels like this vibrating knot, like right in my chest when I'm going through something. Yeah,
I love it. You asked me this a lot. Like I'm describing a situation. You go, well, how do you feel? I go, I feel this. You go, well, where do you feel it in your body? And my first initial reaction is, I don't even want to answer it. Like, I don't know. Right. But then I just step back and I just feel it, and then I come up with that place.
Well, and do you know what the benefit of that is?
Tell us.
The benefit is so next time, sometimes we don't know what's going in our mind. Yeah. We don't know what's going in our emotions. We just know that we are vibrating so much. We are going up. We are ratcheting up on that roller coaster of the window of tolerance. Yeah. And that when we feel that, that's a lot of times our first indication, like, okay, something's going on. And so when we build awareness of, okay, what's going on in my body, then we're like, okay, hang on. That's my first signal that something's going on and I need to pay attention to what's happening. Because a lot of times, like this happens with illness. Like I love your Aura Ring because your Aura Ring will tell you, hey, your readiness is a little bit low. Or it'll be like, hey, your temperature's just a little bit high. You need to, what's going on? And it asks you specifically like, hey, be mindful, be aware, build mindfulness, build awareness with what's going on in your physical body so you don't get sick.
Yeah.
Because if you're not aware, if you're going so fast and you're not paying attention to these signals that's happening in your body, that's when you end up being laid out in bed for 3 days because whatever. It's the same thing with the window of tolerance. It's like, hey, do you feel that? Okay, that is your signal. Something's going on. Let's take a minute. Let's figure out, what do you need? Step back.
Yeah.
Just figure it out.
Well, and I think the problem a lot of times is that we come at life too fast, right? So for really to live this way, it really takes intentionality and slowing life down. And I have this picture, I think, where I'm going in, this ideal world is where my life is slowing down, but my results are increasing.
Yeah.
Right? My outcomes are getting bigger and better and faster, but on the inside, I'm slowing down. And it's this picture. Wayne Gretzky always had this analogy. He said that he was really successful and he was in the zone when he felt like the game was going at slow motion. And he was always skating to where the puck was going to be, not where it was at. So he was like, he was really aware of the game that's being played. And I think that's the key to really increasing window of tolerance, is realizing the game that you're in right now.
Yeah.
And understanding it and just being aware. And one thing, maybe a fast way to do it is just to really connect with how you feel in your body, like these physical senses, because they tell a story. And a lot of times we just sort of we don't even pay attention to them.
Yeah.
It's like, what does this pain tell me? Because pain is an indicator that something is off.
Yeah.
Right? Discontent, it's an indicator. Anxiousness, it's an indicator. What is it telling me? But a lot of times, like, we're not even aware of it. And so if I'm not aware of it, I'll never be able to create strategies for it.
Right. And this is not okay, I've got to be aware right now. This is practice. Wayne Gretzky wasn't Wayne Gretzky, without all of the hours and hours and hours that he spent just practicing and honing his craft. And this is something that we can practice and we can learn. And so as we begin to, work on this and utilize this and be like, okay, when that situation happened, what was I feeling?
Yeah.
It's, the man walked down the street, fell in a hole. The man walked down the street, saw the hole, fell in the hole. The man walked down the street, saw the hole.
Avoided the hole.
He walked around the hole. The man walked down a different street. So that's essentially the path of growth.
Yeah.
It's, we're going through and it's like, okay, when that happened, how did I feel? What was the sensation in my body? Oh, okay, that's it. And then maybe next time something happens, a little bit sooner, okay, when that happened, how did I feel? How do I feel now? So, we're still falling in the hole at this point. And then it's like, okay, now we're walking down the street, there's the hole. And you're like, hey, do you think we could take a bio break real quick? And I'm going to go in the bathroom and I'm just going to okay, I'm feeling myself ramp up. And before I throw up all over everyone and do something that could make me lose my job, I'm just going to take a couple deep breaths. Yeah. I'm going to be aware. I'm building my awareness. I'm going to be more open on, okay, what's actually going on with me so I don't make a mistake. And then as we're continuing to strengthen these neural pathways between our, the front and back of our brains, then we are building that, and we're building that awareness, and then we can walk down a different street. But it does take time. The man didn't walk down a different street the first time. He fell in the hole a couple different times.
Well, and I think sometimes we don't even know there's another street.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and because we don't have the awareness, we don't even know there's a hole. And it's that's simple. I can, as your kids, you're like, no, don't do that. You're good. Watch out. Whatever, Wile E. Coyote's coming or.
Yeah. A little something that does scare me, I think about is like, I think I have a lot of awareness, but what don't I know? Like what are the holes I'm still falling in that I don't even see that I'm falling in a hole
that everyone else can see, but you can't see?
Oh gosh, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, and being more open, that's exactly like that statement that you said, you're open. You're like, okay, what else is happening that I don't know? That's a perfect example of just being more open to the concept of, hey, what else is going on? Being curious and being accepting, like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm human, and that's part of what makes me human.
Well, and I think, Lisa, like always soliciting feedback.
Yeah.
I think that's part of that, right? And in almost looking at life as a big feedback machine, right? Because every result is really just feedback. Every outcome is feedback.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody, tells you about your behavior, it's just feedback and being open to it, but also soliciting it, asking for it, is sort of a key sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And really with mindfulness, the key thing is working toward being present. So, we're building awareness, and then we're being more open. It's curious, like, what else is going on? And then we're being accepting, like, oh my gosh, I did not realize I've been falling in that hole all
Yeah.
these years. I did not realize I've been behaving that way, and I've been hurting people I love that way. I didn't realize that. And then it's being present. Once you've gotten all of those realizations, it's just being present and being present with the situation, what's going on. And these things help us to increase our window of tolerance. Because if we're driving down the road and we almost get sideswiped by a semi or a car on the interstate, and we don't take the time to like settle ourselves, and we don't just be present with it and be like, okay, that just happened and I almost just died and I didn't, and I'm here.
Right.
And just giving yourself a second to breathe, you're going to carry all of that high cortisol levels into your next meeting and into your day if you without being able to just let it calm and let it soothe. And sometimes we don't have very much time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have to go through and hope. And that's when you're just honest and say, listen, I'm kind of freaked out right now and I'm really irritable and I'm just going to apologize in advance.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, and that's being accepting. It's like, I'm kind of like dysregulated today. I'm pretty human and I'm probably going to say something that I'm going to regret, and I'm just going to let you know I know it. And then you go about your day and you probably bite a couple people's heads off, but at least you gave them a warning.
Yeah.
You know,
Lisa, this whole idea of a mindfulness, I'm thinking about a particular activity that you and I do quite a bit, and we do it at least a couple times a week, and it's the activity of Lisa driving Dennis to the airport. Right. So we have this activity that we do, at least a couple times a week. And, as we're getting off of the interstate to the airport, there's a pothole.
A great big hole.
There's been a pothole for the last 3 or 4 years.
Or 10.
Maybe 10. It's been there for a while. Right. And I would always hit it.
And one time that pothole blew our tire.
It has been known to happen. Right. But I would hit it. And then you just kind of you just said, hey, do you know there's a pothole? And I was like, oh gosh, there is. I didn't even know there was. Right. And I was like, okay, there's a pothole, and we're talking. Then I hit the pothole. And I hit the pothole, right? So this happened maybe for about a month.
Or a year.
Okay. Where I might have some challenges with time. But after a season, then I thought, okay, there's a pothole. Remember there's a pothole. And then I would just consciously avoid the pothole, right? And I had to do this for about maybe another year. But when was the last time I hit a pothole? That particular pothole.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, right?
And we forget about it. We just take it for granted. And then it's like, hey, we missed that pothole.
Yeah, that happened a couple weeks ago.
After the fact, it was like, hey, we missed that.
Yeah,
and we're like, oh, I didn't even think about it.
Hey, yeah, we used to hit that
and we celebrated our win. We were like, yeah, look at us.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great example. But so just continue to increase your awareness. And I think that's where we need other relationships in our life, because you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. So you need help with people, drawing attention to what is that label, because you're inside the bottle. I think, and then this whole idea of really building resilience. And I think the key, what we've discovered, is that putting the right meaning to things is a great motivator. And people get discouraged. They lose sort of their drive, their energy, because they're putting different meanings to things. For example, you could have a setback, right? It's like something that, it's just a setback. But here's a different question: is what if it was a setup? What if your setback was really a setup, right? Or another one that we've been playing with is that we have a lot of problems. And a lot of times, leadership is the ability to handle bigger problems. The higher you go in leadership, the bigger the problems you have. And a lot of times we're trying to solve problems. But I stepped back with a team the other week and I said, okay, there's this problem. It's like there's a revenue problem. I said, well, what if that's not the problem? What if that's the symptom? What would the problem then be? And it really kind of broke it down to really they have a revenue problem, but that it's a symptom of really a communication problem, how they communicate certain services, right? That people just don't get it. And they can get mad, but what happened is you sort of got to the spider instead of the web. Maybe a very controversial one because we work a lot in healthcare and burnout is a big thing, right? Everybody's talking about burnout. But I asked a group of about 200 nurses in Albuquerque last week. I said, well, what
Nurse
if
leaders, they were like
right?
directors.
Yeah, chief nursing officers and executives. And I said, well, what if burnout wasn't the problem? And Lisa, you could see like probably 50 of them were mad, right? They're like, right? Because they have burnout programs and, things to help. I said, but what if it wasn't the problem? What if it was the symptom? If burnout was just a symptom, what would the real problem be? And what it really is, Lisa, it's growing your window of tolerance, right? And then the challenge with that is that you're always trying to fix outside circumstances. Like we're trying to fix symptoms when we're really getting to the root. And so this whole idea of resilience, I think maybe a missing thing that I don't hear talked about is how do you put a different meaning to these different things that happen? Right? And it's an idea of how do we create optimism around it, right? Because if I look at it as a setback, well, then I'm going to have a certain way to feel about it. But if I say, hey, this is just a setup, what would it set up? I can step into it with more power, with more creativity. And so I think this whole idea of resilience is really an idea of how do we create different meanings around it? Because the challenge that I find when people talk about resilience is that they're always trying to fix outside circumstances when really it's an internal job. So this idea of optimism, it's an internal job. How do I increase my problem-solving skills? Because it's not the problem. Like people get mad at the problem, but really it's how do I increase my problem-solving skills? Because the problems that you have right now is not really the problem. The real problem is how you think about the problem. That's the real problem that you have. And a lot of times people get mad at the problem, but the problem is not the problem. The first problem is how you think about the problem. And then really getting healthy coping skills. I mean, how many, because every action is a solution to something, right? Every behavior is a solution to something. Now, it might not be the right solution, right? Your behavior of maybe like drinking alcohol as a coping mechanism, it's a solution. It's not the best solution, but it is a solution. And really sort of stepping back and going, okay, I behave this way. It's a solution, but what's it trying to solve? What's the core issue? And I think coming back to the core issue, and then Lisa, I think one of the key ones, and this is really maybe hard to say, is that I think we got to loosen control. A lot of times we have control over it's like we have this illusion of control. I want to control the outcome. I want to control other people. It shouldn't be this way. And I have this idea of control where really the locus of control is right here. And I always get very demotivated when I feel like it's out there, when my problem is out there, where all of the problems sort of are there. So it's maybe a little bit a different way to kind of look at resilience that we don't hear a lot of people talk about. But really, resilience is all about the meaning that you put to things. And meaning is your great motivator. So is it a setback or is it a setup, right? Is it an advantage? Like is it a disadvantage or is it an advantage? Maybe a great sort of way, like when we think about resilience, Lisa, is that a couple of years ago, we lost the tree in our front yard, right? And our typical MO is to, buy these small little tiny trees that are really cheap, plant it, right? And then it's going to, it'll take 20, 30 years. Like we got some trees that are like gigantic in our backyard, but they started super small because we only want to spend $10. But a couple of years ago, do you remember our conversations like, let's not buy a small tree? Like we always buy small trees. Let's buy something like 4 or 5 feet, right? Let's buy something 4 feet that at least has got some, enough that it doesn't look like a tiny little stick in our front yard, right? So we got a 4-foot tree. And you know what I didn't realize about the 4-foot tree, kind of irritated me afterwards, is I didn't know we had to dig out an 8-foot hole, right? You got to dig twice the hole for this size of tree. And I remember, Lisa, as we were like shoveling and like wheeling the wheelbarrow, remember, to the back and dumping the dirt. And I was kind of irritated. I was annoyed. And I was really in my mind thinking it was a disadvantage. I was kind of losing my drive, losing my motivation, really losing my resilience because I was thinking of it as a disadvantage. Like it shouldn't be this way. Like, why do I have to do this on a Saturday? I want to be going playing golf. And then I asked myself, okay, what if this was an advantage? How would I feel about it? And I thought, you know what? It's my workout. I don't have to work out. And all of a sudden, I put a different meaning to it. And so I think the thing that we don't hear talked about a lot of times with resiliency is this idea of meaning. We're trying to create these outside circumstances when really it's an inside job. It's an inside job of meaning. So meaning is a great motivator. So a couple of different questions is like, hey, what if it was an advantage? It feels like a disadvantage. What if it was an advantage? Hey, what if your setbacks were really a setup? And using these kinds of, and what if whatever problem you're having is simply a symptom? What would the real problem be? And those are ways to increase your resiliency, which really increases your creativity. And I think when our window of tolerance is really narrow, we're not creative, right? We're in the emotion, we're in the overwhelm, we're not creative, we're not collaborative. And that's why we want to grow it. We want to grow it so that we can be more creative.
Right. And then with that concept of building resilience, there's also physical things that we can do. We can build connections with people, because the more we're connected with other people, the more resilient we are, because we weren't designed to be alone on a deserted island. We were designed to do life in community.
Yeah.
And so we are more resilient when we're linked with other people. And we're also more resilient when we foster wellness. So when you are moving your body physically, you are naturally more resilient because you're more motivated. When you are challenging yourself mentally, you're listening to audiobooks, or you're doing Sudoku, or just something that you're challenging yourself mentally. It's you're pushing yourself just a little bit, or you're allowing yourself to get out into social circles. Those are physical ways that you can build your resilience, because we need those things. That's how we're wired as humans.
Yeah, Lisa, that's why we have Leadership 101, right? Because Leadership 101 is not a course. It's actually a coaching program where you get connected with a group of other leaders that are walking the same road that you're.
And a coach.
Yeah.
Coach and leaders together throwing ideas around.
Right. And it's a 6-module coaching session, and it really creates this resiliency. It really helps people grow their window of tolerance. Now, Lisa, for Christmas, we're going to throw in the book 8 Qualities of Drama-Free Teams.
The ebook, yeah.
Yeah, and the Procrastination Utilizer.
Yeah, that's three mini courses.
3 mini courses together, right, with the book. And we're going to throw it in. We don't normally do it, but just for Christmas. So if you're listening to this during the Christmas season of 2025, just click the link in the show notes and you can sign up for the coaching program, and you can get all these extra bonuses. And so we want to do
it's
something.
Our holiday bundle gift for you to help you grow your resilience and your leadership, and build connections with other people that are like you.
Yeah. And so today we talked about how do you increase your mindfulness? How do you build your resilience? So what's one thing you can do to increase your mindfulness? What's one thing you can do to increase your resilience? And what you're going to find is this window of tolerance really start to increase. Lisa, what's kind of hitting your brain as we've had this conversation about window of tolerance today?
For me, just having my awareness, being present and being aware, building my awareness to know what's actually going on with me. So I know in advance, it's my own personal internal aura ring that says, hey, your readiness is a little low and you need to maybe check it, maybe do a couple things, or go easy on, I think your ring even says like, go easy today, go easy on yourself today. Yeah. And so building awareness and increasing my mindfulness on my internal aura ring saying, hey, your readiness is a little low, go easy because your window of tolerance is maybe a little smaller today. Yeah,
Lisa, I think I'm going to do some more body scans. I'm going to come back and step back and go, okay, where am I feeling this in my body? Because I sort of have forgotten about that little trick. And so that's super helpful. Thanks for bringing that up. So Leadership 101 is the Christmas special, right? You get all these extra bonuses. We'll put everything in the show notes. We want you to do it. You're worth it. You're worth the investment, right? Your leadership and you growing as a person, you growing your window of tolerance, it's totally worth it, right? Because when you get better, everything around you gets better. So thank you, and we'll see you next time on the Drama-Free Living Podcast.